Man, for me, man, I always thought I'd be one of those guys that played football forever, man. Like I absolutely love the game. I love those moments. I love preparing. I love the practice. You know what I mean? But I think ultimately, man, I've had a great career. I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of highs, man. I was able to accomplish a lot of things. But to be honest, man, I'm actually looking forward to what's next for me. And so obviously I want to put a little bit of that time back into my family and my kids because you miss so much, man, when you're grinding and when football is at the center of your life. So yeah, man, I'm actually looking forward to the future.
All right, so let's put you to work in this analyzing business now. Let's start in college, not the pros. Your alma mater, LSU, has great talent every year, turns out great pros every year, but can't seem to get into the playoffs. They fire Brian Kelly. What, in your mind, is the state of LSU in?
Well, I think we expect a lot, man. Down here in the Bayou, especially at a flagship program like LSU, and I think somewhere along the way, man, I think Brian kind of lost the players, and then he lost the fan base, and so even looking forward, man, I think the next head coach or whoever those guys decide to bring in, it has to be somebody that represents Louisiana, that understands Louisiana, which is why I thought Frank was a good kind of nod for the intern head coaching position because I think he'll provide them with some structure and some stability. Going forward into this back half of the season, these last 4 or 5 games, because he's from New Orleans, he's from Louisiana. He rose through the high school coaching ranks and college ranks, and I think he's a perfect intern. But obviously, man, if you could land a big fish like Lane Kiffin, or even one of the young spark plugs like a guy like Kenny, Dillingham out there in Arizona, or even a guy Summerall at Tulane, it might not cost you as much as it costs you to get Brian Kelly. So I can't imagine that we'll give out another $100 million contract.
We'll see. We'll see what Jimmy Sexton has to say about all that, considering he wields a pretty strong stick around the sport. But before we get to more on what makes Lane a good potential fit here, fit is an interesting part of the conversation. It was when Brian Kelly took the job originally. A lot of people pointing out a guy from the Northeast coming down here. You had the weird family moment at the basketball game. How important is that, especially for this job at LSU in particular, to have someone that does understand and actually fit the region?
Yeah, I think to be able to sustain the program long term, I think you just have to be embedded in the community. I think when I look back to some of the greatest players from the last 20 years that played for LSU, a lot of those guys, like along with myself, those guys are New Orleans kids. Those guys are surrounding area kids, right? I think about Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chase of the world, the Odell Beckhams, right? Like I think we have to get back to really retaining the top talent in our state. Because we're talking about fit and all those different things, but it's kind of hard, right? Because a kid from Louisiana playing for LSU, like he's going to give it his all, each and every day. And I think ultimately, man, we got to get back to that. And obviously, man, I think too, man, the donor space and the NIL space, right? Like we have to find a way to create that type of money, each and every year, to be able to sustain and retain a lot of these top players, because the more success you have or the more success a kid has individually, you got a lot of different programs throwing a lot of different money at these guys. So it's definitely a challenging time right now, in college football.
So would you rather have a known coach who's been at it a lot of years, or maybe a younger, new, energetic type of a coach?
Well, I think it depends, man. Like I said, obviously, if you're willing to pull a guy like Lane Kiffin away from, Ole Miss, which would be hard to do. I mean, you're gonna have to throw half the bank at him, but so I don't think that's in the best interest of LSU right now, especially with the last 2 coaches we had. We've had to buy those guys out, right? So I'm hoping and I'm wondering, will these guys take a different approach? And I kind of mentioned this on my podcast. in the Bayou where, maybe you do get a guy like Kenny Dillingham or, John Summerall, right? A guy that doesn't cost half the money that it costs to get a Brian Kelly or a Lane Kiffin, right? And sort of kind of, restructure this college thing, man, because I think they're throwing a little bit too much money around for these coaches.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the coaches have always had money thrown around their way, but you mentioned for the players now, they got offers getting put in front of them. You're someone that, back in the day, if this had been around, would have been, I'm sure, entertaining a ton of offers like this. So how much more difficult do you think that makes it for current guys going through this to try and go and actually do something that's in their best interest football-wise?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough, man. Not just on the coaches, but the players as well. I couldn't imagine, being that young and I got pulled in 1,000 different directions, but it wasn't money related. It was usually like my time. You know what I mean? So I couldn't imagine, being in that space where, I really love this program. I want to go to LSU. I grew up, watching this team and supporting this team and always thinking I'd play for them. To just taking phone calls on, different colleges, around the league. I couldn't imagine me personally, like living through that, experiencing that.
So let's turn to the pros. Your team there, the Saints, are 2-8. You have Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough at quarterback. So do you have your quarterback, or is the quarterback of the future still out there?
Oh man, I think the verdict is still to be heard, man. I will say this, man. I thought Spencer, I thought he did sort of okay, man. I think at the end of the day, it's all about wins and losses, and I think you can't dismiss that. He didn't win a lot of games, this season or last season. And, obviously, man, I think with Tyler Shough, man, he has some physical capabilities. I think he can throw the ball. I think his pocket awareness in the last game they played was really impressive, man, against the Panthers. And so, I mean, if he can build on this and continue, and then what I loved the most was that he was able to somewhat bring out the best, in Chris Olave. And we hadn't really seen that with Spencer Rattler or even with Derek Carr when he was playing quarterback, right? It just seemed like Chris Olave was always a step behind or a step too late, right? So it was good to kind of see those two guys connect, on a lot of deep balls and just critical situations and third down. So I think that's encouraging, going forward, because Chris Olave is clearly your number one receiver. You traded away Shaheed, right? And you want to see that connection. You want to see those guys be able to grow and be comfortable with each other. So I will say that was a positive. And like I said, man, anytime you can go on the road against a divisional opponent and get a win, it doesn't matter if you're 1-8, 2-8, 8-1. Those games are always a big deal.